There's something you said earlier that's been resonating in my mind. I said that the forces of evil don't want anything about this code to be known. They want to keep the population, let's say, blind. Can you give me a bit more depth on that thought?
Yes, this world has a purpose, which is for your soul to earn merit, for your soul to become stronger, to be rectified, for your soul to grow stronger, for your soul to grow in consciousness. When the soul incarnates in this world, the Kabbalists teach that the body causes amnesia in the soul. The soul agrees to its lessons before incarnating, but upon entering the body, it forgets everything that was agreed upon. Part of the game, part of the training. That allows you to generate merit, for your soul to generate merit. Here, starting from absolute ignorance, but through signs, signals, and an inner strength that you don't know where it comes from, and from tough events and hard blows that happen to you in life, you begin asking yourself genuine, authentic questions that come from within. The ones you were mentioning off camera, those questions start to surface. Because your soul struggles to grow, to seek enlightenment, your life. Enlightenment comes from knowledge. When you know more, you understand why the Illuminati are called Illuminati. It's because they have knowledge. That's why they're enlightened. Not because they have more spiritual potential than you, but because they have more knowledge than you. That's all. That's what Illuminati means. Then we discuss what they use it for, correct? Yes, of course. The forces of evil play a fundamental role in this world. They are also algorithms, they are intelligences whose mission is to train each one of the human beings in this world. They are our personal trainers. So, they make you face many difficulties in your life so that you can overcome those difficulties and become stronger. It's like a gym. You go to the gym and pay for a personal trainer, right? So that he can help you, I don't know, to grow your biceps, your quadriceps, to make you stronger, to help you gain more ability. And we complain that the coach makes us work hard. But isn't it true that I'm paying him to make me work hard? Because what I want is to grow my muscles, in this case at the gym, but in reality I want to expand my consciousness. So what's interesting is that these forces of evil exist and they do their job phenomenally well, really phenomenally well. If the forces of good did their job as well as the forces of evil, it would be a different world, it wouldn't be this one. And maybe we wouldn't have the ability to generate so much merit, right? The forces of evil are mentioned in the Zohar, which is the quintessential book of Kabbalah. And they are called by a code that is called Eres Rav. Eres Rav literally means the great evening, because it refers in code to that. In Egyptian civilization, pagan gods were worshipped who are not really gods, but rather malevolent entities with whom these Egyptians made pacts in very dark rituals to obtain material benefits. This is still being done, obviously, and the RAB beings still exist today, and obviously at the level of leaders and big businessmen. Of those, well, we could mention names or not, but everyone here can imagine. An excellent example was what was called the pandemic, I emphasize. What was called the pandemic, where we saw a deployment of the Ravi's media that was absolutely unheard of until now. What do you mean? No, what it means is that we are all under that effect until we start to wake up. But we can't wake up unless we are under that effect.
Of what? What specific effect are you talking about?
The effect of awakening, the effect of your consciousness emerging as a result of the pressure exerted on it. If there is no pressure, there is no result, there is no emergence of consciousness. The consciousness arises, emerges as a result of the mechanism of pressure exerted by pain. If there is no pain, there is no awakening. The Kabbalists say there are only two ways for your consciousness to grow in this world. One is through pain, through hardship. The other is through study. It means that if you study, you save yourself from hardship. You save yourself from suffering. I insist, not because the events in life are less challenging, but because since you have more wisdom, you won't experience them as badly. And another one learns through hardship. The hardships won't stop coming. Because this world is full of dark forces whose goal is to train your soul to become stronger. The dark forces aren't aware that their goal is to train the soul to become stronger. It's like Smith with Neo. What Smith does is that he thinks he's doing his job and doing it well, and all Smith wants is to survive and destroy Neo. But because Neo represents the Mashiach, Neo represents your inner Messiah. Messiah is not an external character who comes to save anyone. Messiah is you, it's your soul. By upgrading itself, it manages to reach levels of consciousness in which literally it can dodge bullets.
I understand myself, Raúl. Speaking of these forces of evil, are you Ra? Aren't you Ra? Are you Ra? My community, my audience, is very familiar with these forces of evil. How is it that sometimes the forces of good seem so absolutely useless? When it comes to fighting these forces of evil, you mentioned the events that happened in 2020, that wild mind programming, that massive experimentation with inoculations that we won't mention here. I want to send regards since they took down a show we did together. Why does it seem like this reality is dominated by them?
Is it that this reality is dominated by them until you exercise your power? Let me explain. Do they exist? This brings up an intriguing subject, navigating life and realizing that ultimately it comes down to personal responsibility. How you go through life is fundamental for your spiritual immune system to absolutely reject attacks. If you have a strong physical immune system, diseases won't affect you, infections won't affect you, and so on. Viruses, bacteria, whatever. The same thing happens in the spiritual world. If your soul has a strong immune system, if your soul doesn't have any cracks, what the Kabbalists call. If your house doesn't have any cracks, thieves can't come in to steal anything from you. How do the cracks in the house form? Out of the cracks in the soul form. Well, with certain behaviors that make the forces of evil feed more and more and become stronger and stronger. And I'm going to talk here about something that is rarely discussed because it's very specialized knowledge, but I want to reveal it here, and which the masters of Kabbalah talk about. For example, the forces of evil feed on the seed that man throws away as garbage, from the semen that a man discards during sexual intercourse, or the semen that falls to the ground, to the trash, to a condom, or to any place other than the woman's womb, which is its rightful place. This nourishes the unseen forces of evil, making them more powerful when they feed on it. That is written in the Zohar. That's an example.
Can you give me more examples?
Now, just imagine the harm that the porn industry causes in the world. With what I just explained to you. That's an example. Immediately, if people had the wisdom, because they have studied what needs to be studied, it would never occur to them to practice sexuality in that way again. Alright? Another example. A bad mouth, speaking badly, criticizing, saying bad words. We have been given a mouth, say the Kabbalists, only to spread wisdom, awaken consciousness, and give blessings. That's what the mouth should be used for, to nourish us. If I mean, when it comes to articulated language, to nourish us. Obviously, of course, but the mouth, the entire oral and phonatory system, including the mouth, teeth, and tongue. The only goal it should have is to emulate the Creator. That is, to be a giver. But a giver of what? Of blessings, of good words, of good wishes, of fruitful agreements that do good in the world of dissemination, like you do and like so many others do.
I unfortunately use a lot of bad words sometimes.
Well, but here we are learning things. And it's very interesting because the same thing happened to me. And I've had to educate myself so that in my life I only have blessings. And I can assure you that it works. Since you start practicing sexuality in the right way and understand its meaning, are you aware of that? You are aware?
Of that, yes.
And they practice sexuality in a sacred way. Notice that one of the forces of evil, the ER-Raf, there are five types. One of the types of ER-Raf has as its goal that you do not practice sacred sexuality. These are what are called those who destroyed the temple. The temple of Jerusalem, it is said, has been destroyed twice. Well, that's a metaphor. The temple is actually the soul. That's the temple. The temple that was destroyed means that the soul has cracks. Why? Because it has been short-circuited. Why? Because there has been bad behavior. Why are the forces of evil infinitely more powerful than the forces of good here? Well, because most of the population doesn't know how to conduct themselves in life. They're ignorant of these rules. And therefore, they're at the mercy, like dry leaves carried by the wind, of whatever those forces of evil want to do. And the worst part is that most of those people defend to the bitter end those who manipulate them. That's tremendous. There's also a very interesting reference to that in the fourth part of the movie Matrix. So that behavior, the sexual one, the behavior with the mouth, and then the evil eye. The evil eye, which in Hebrew is called Ainara, literally means evil eye. That is, it's to envy. What your neighbor has, what your friend has, what your relative has, to envy them, but also to want them not to have it. And that's a behavior that short-circuits your soul and causes terrible cracks in your soul. We have the story of the golden calf. At the foot of Mount Sinai, when Moses goes to get the tablets, that's a metaphor. Also, in Kabbalistic terms, the decoding is as follows. Kaf. In Hebrew, it's called Egel. 3 letters. A-Y-I-N-L-A-M-E-D, sorry. A-Y-I-N-G-I-M-E-L-L-A-M-E-D, 3 letters. They are the 3 initials of 3 short circuits. A-I-N-A-R-A, the A-Y-I-N, evil eye. The L-A-M-E-D, the Shonara, evil tongue, slander. And the D-I-M-E-L, forbidden sexual unions with loss of seed, all 3 together. That is a calf. Have you made a golden calf? And the problem that exists in this world, the biggest problem that exists in this world is only one. It's ignorance.